let's go. So I'll be introducing you to Henrik in one moment, but this webinar today is the last in our series for this season. We've had a lot of people following us, and that's been very rewarding. And the idea is, for those of you that haven't joined us before, is that we'll be making a little mini presentation of some facts and figures from myself, and then Henrik and I will be discussing various aspects of working in the world of fashion in Scandinavia, and probably the word COVID will come into the conversation at some point, I'm sure. So I'm Anton Dell, for those that haven't met me, for none of you, those that haven't met me, excuse me. I run the Anton Dell Fashion Consultancy. We help fashion brands to find agents worldwide. And my colleague today is Henrik Eppers, who is a leading agent in Scandinavia. First of all, we're going to give you some facts and figures to give you a feel for the market, and then we'll introduce Henrik, and then we'll move forward. So first, population, 28 million. There's a very high expenditure on clothing in Scandinavia. It is really 24 billion euro. And the value of imported clothing is something like 18 billion euro. The surprising thing for many is that the Nordics is actually the 10th largest economy in the world, with a population of only 28 million. Scandinavians spend more per capita on fashion than any country in Europe. Scandinavians have the highest travel activity of all countries in the EU. And two of the biggest fast retailers in the world, H&M and Bestseller, come from Scandinavia. These are the names of some of the key brands and multi-brand shops. This was done by some research by my team, and it's not 100% accurate, but a lot of the main names are there. At the end of today's session, there'll be a recording, and we'll be posting it to everybody by email, and you'll be able to go over this listing and see whatever information there is. So I'm going to stop the share now, and I'm going to introduce you to Henrik. Henrik is an agent in Scandinavia. He covers all the Scandinavian countries, and he knows the market well. I'm going to ask Henrik to introduce himself and his company, and maybe you can tell us about yourself and what the weather's like today down your way, and hear a little about what you do, and then we'll investigate business in Scandinavia.
Right. So my name is Henrik. I've been in the fashion industry for about 28 years. Used to work on the branded side for many, many years, all over the world. Have established companies in China, North America, South America, Africa, Middle East, India. So know of the various cultures that need to be sort of accommodated in various parts of the world. Me and the team that I'm working with, or my partners in the company that we established 2 years ago, have all got similar backgrounds. So plus 20 years within the fashion industry for all of them within some sort of commercial activity or in procurement and supply chain. And what we looked upon at that time was that we were tired of brands continuously trying to push their way into markets, all of them fairly much oblivious to the fact that local markets already had brands similar to what they were pitching. We were tired that nobody took the retail deficiencies or the retail challenge of note. And as such, we basically created a company where we partner up with retailers all over Scandinavia. At this time, we have roughly about 1,800 under our umbrella. And with that, we then take brands and put it into the stores. So it's not the classic sort of wholesale to business. It's more that we handpick retailers that will suit the brand And because of the repartee or the partnership that we have with the retailers, we managed to get business fairly fast growing.
Okay, thank you. One piece of housekeeping here. If you do have any questions for Henrik or myself, at the bottom you'll see the chat box. If you could use the chat box, that would be great. You can also use the Q&A, but the chat box somehow a little bit easier to use. It doesn't make much difference. So, of course, I've been to Scandinavia, to the various countries of many times myself, visiting various fashion fairs. But how would you say is the difference between the different markets in the 4 countries, between Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland? Is there a difference that you could really quantify in some way in terms of the way people buy or the way they think about buying?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to really stress what you also said. It is for individual markets. And when we talk about the Nordics, very often the Baltic region is included as well, as also Greenland and Iceland. So we're talking about, you know, maybe up to 7 different nationalities, 7 different ways of thinking. Very often the Danes will have a tendency to say that they're extremely international. Being Danish, I will say, no, we're not. That sort of cap goes to the Swedish. The Swedish is definitely the more international country of all. It's also where the majority of, let's say, larger international fashion brands have established, all of them. Sweden is also the country with the largest demographic population, roughly around 13.7 million. Yep. They have the highest gross product of all the countries, and it's also where you will meet the hardest way in, because they already have the brands that they want. So if you want to get into Sweden, you really have to know who you want to get in with. The Norwegians are a bit more isolated as such. Norway is an extreme, vast, long country, and even their main capital, Oslo, only has about 450,000 people living there. So you can imagine that this 4.5 million people is stretched across a massive landscape, which means that in Norway, you can in Oslo feel that you are in any international city, and if you go 50 kilometers away from Oslo, you're suddenly in a small bukt where people still go fishing, and they actually live from fishing from their own boat. So it's a different mindset. Then the Danes, of course, they are international, but it's also a country based from agriculture. So if the weather is good and the rain is fair, we have plenty of money. If the weather is poor, then we tend to keep them in the wallet and we don't spend. The Finnish is a completely different culture than the 3 aforementioned, simply because the Finnish is the country closest to the Russian border. And as such, they are extremely Slavic in their way of mind. And it's also a very traditional market, still very strong on tailoring, classic workwear, which is something that has over the past 10, 15 years slowly disappeared in the other 3 markets.
Okay, so that's interesting. Just a quick question on language. I mean, how do you all manage between you with different languages? Is there one language that goes through somehow?
I would put it like this. If you really want to, then a Danish person can understand a Norwegian person and a Swedish person. Yep. Nobody understands the Finnish.
Okay. Yeah, no, I know. I think it's got a similarity to Hungarian. I think it's about the only thing. Somebody once told me that. And Hungarian's pretty difficult. So I have 2 Hungarians working in my company, so never understand what they're talking about. Okay, so one of the things you mentioned to me when we were talking previously is that there's a great feeling and knowledge to seek the answers all the time from Scandinavian people. Why is that? Where did that come from? Is that from the Vikings going back?
No, I'd love to say Vikings and yes, drum my own chest and feel strong, but it's not really there. To be honest, I think as you said yourself, we're 28 million people up here. We're the 10th largest economy. There isn't a person in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, or Finland that knows what poverty is. We are high middle class and above in average. We have vast sums available. We have some of the best healthcare and social care that any nations have. So even if you're out of job, you still have a fairly good income, which means that people become choosy. They look for what they want. They search more. The region that we're talking about is also the region in the world that has the highest capacity of e-commerce, that has the highest growth on e-commerce rates. So it sort of goes hand in hand. We have full visibility in the market. It's really tough to do price discriminations. So you need to be prepared.
I'll be moving there soon, especially like a high income. That's really good. How do you get, two of the really famous brands, bestseller and H&M came from Scandinavia. How did that happen? But suddenly they became really massive companies all over the world. What was it that they did that was very special, do you think?
No, I think it goes back to what you mentioned before, not predominantly the Viking thing, but we've always been such small nations that we've always had to trade with others.
Yeah, okay.
We've always been used to having to go to, let's say, first Germany, then England, or Holland, Belgium, France. The only regions where Scandinavian companies have had sort of an issue getting into has been within Europe, being Italy and Spain. Everywhere else, we usually very quickly conquer and get in. Second reason why I think is that Scandinavians have a different mentality when it comes to partnership. For us, it is 50-50, which means that if I put my hand on the cooker, then I expect you to do the same. The brands that do this become successful. The brands that don't never get a chance.
That's really interesting. So I guess we're going to touch now into, we've all been struck with the terrible coronavirus around the world, and it's affected everybody's business. I know Scandinavia has taken a slightly different approach in some ways, and I think the death rates have been generally lower there, but obviously it's affected fairs. I know that SIF is not taking place, but Revolver is. And I was very interested.
SIF is actually taking place.
Pardon?
SIF is taking place.
Or as an actual physical exhibition now?
Yes.
Oh, really?
So what happened was that Revolver, SIF, Danish Fashion Institute all went out and said they wanted to do this as a joint entity. And as per usual, within 2 days, they already started arguing and bitching. So suddenly everything is split in 3 identities again. SIF is going to be slightly different. SIF has, a bit like we know from Düsseldorf, they have a very large, several floors where you have tons of showrooms.
Yeah, fashion center there,
So the entire fashion center is going to be open, and every single showroom is going to be taken by a brand. Everything is completely booked.
But what about the downstairs halls? They're not going to use those?
They're not going to open that, no.
Okay.
The reality is there is no trust that any international buyers will come. Yeah. So it's just going to be local buyers that's going to be served.
Yeah, interesting. So what's going to be your approach in your showroom to next season? What are you going to be doing differently in terms of seeing buyers, secure safety and so on? And what are buyers telling you as you're speaking to them about making appointments?
So I mean, for the fall winter in sale, very quickly became adamant that we needed to have some sort of digital approach. So that meant that we, together with the majority of brands that we represent or co-own, we went in and created 3D dimensional digital lookbooks. Everything was digitalized, videotaped, and sent out to customers as well as agents and distributors. That meant that where a lot of our colleagues that didn't do this realized index 50, 60, 70. We managed to realize index 92. It's still a loss of 8% compared to the year before, but it's still much better than what it could have been. For the spring summer in sale, we have again created full digital versions of everything, but we've also created physical collections, because we do know that in the majority of countries that we work in, that the local fairs are still taking on. Oslo is still going on. The Swedish don't have a fair anymore, so that's the old school canvas selling. And Finland goes to Düsseldorf. So we sort of serve the customers through that sort of variation. Our own company, we are going to be present at Copenhagen, Oslo, Stockholm, Helsinki, Düsseldorf, London, and Paris to serve all customers.
And do you find that what percentage of physical customers are actually going to be coming into your showroom, and what percentage would just want to buy digitally, or is digital used as a tool to get them in? How is that working?
I think in reference to getting new customers, the digital is extremely important, because that we haven't been able to go out and actually visit one. So Scandinavia was closed down for about 1.5 months completely. We weren't allowed to leave our offices, and that was the time when you usually do your canvassing. That's when you go out and meet prospective new accounts. Now we're back actually trying to get everything scrambled in order for the new season. What I know from both us and colleagues, what we've done is been in dialogue with all the stores. We are lucky, as you said, our region acted and reacted very quickly to the COVID-19, which meant that we aren't as, let's say, mentally hit as other countries. So like the Norwegians have no problem going to Oslo to buy. The Swedish have no problem going to Stockholm. The Danes have no problem coming to Copenhagen. And the Finnish hardly had COVID-19 for some reason. So they're fine going to Germany.
Okay, another place to go to.
Yeah.
Okay, so from the sounds of it, though, that a lot of people may not be necessarily traveling to Stiff and Revolver, but they may be going in their local. So people won't be traveling so much. And what about the shops? I mean, are any of them going to just buy digitally, you think, and not come in at all because they're anxious, nervous?
I mean, I would say yes, because we already have orders digitally received on some of the collections that we manage. But it would be sort of a misleading yes, because I also know that the sales team have made physical appointments with that customer to go and show them the styles later on before deadline. So they replace what they like, so we could get an indication on what styles we needed to, project in reference to production. But at the end of the day, it's not a binding order yet. When the COVID-19 started, everybody said, we'll go digital, that's going to be the solution, but it's not. It's not the solution. Fashion is not just something you do when you don't have the ability to do something else. Fashion is actually a required entity. You need to know about fabrics, you need to know about weaving or knitting, you need to know about wash and whatever, and you need to know about how to sell or market it. I think we're going to see a lot of brands struggle. From the portfolio we had, unfortunately, 2 brands went bankrupt, which, I mean, you can't do anything about. And the reason why they went bankrupt, amongst others, is that they didn't take to the new times. They were very sort of focused on, we do it the way we want to do, which is fine. But if nobody can go out and sell, then you don't get any orders.
So were these non-Scandinavian brands, were they?
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of countries do Scandinavians like? Do they like buying it? What I mean by that is there a general, we like French, Italian, Korean brands? Is there some?
I would say, I mean, there are some very successful Italian and French companies up here, of course. But that is very segmented. So let's say a lot of the successful Italian brands have been male and usually tailoring and suiting styles that have been very strong. The French companies are not what you would expect. It's not the highest tier. Of course, we got Hermès, yes, we got Gucci, but it's not their apparel. It's just only their accessories. Isabelle Marant, Vanessa Bruno have done really well. But others, it's tougher for the other ones because, as said, we are trade people. We don't believe something should suddenly cost £1,200.
So do you agree with me? Because I think for the next coming season, I think there is well, first of all, we've been surprised in the consultancy about how many agents are looking for new brands. We thought nothing would happen till October, but there seems to be a lot of interest in what's new, finding something new and different. Do you agree with me that it's the new and the different that are one is, and it will be an important factor next season in terms of people wanting to buy?
Yes and no. I believe that new is always a factor, and anything new has some sort of relevance or interest. But I think what buyers are going to be looking more for is shareability and risk taking from the brand side. So what we're seeing right now is a fluctuation of see now, buy now brands doing really well in the market. Simply because it's easier to manage. You won't have large stock rooms just sitting idle. Everybody's expecting COVID-19 to have sort of the second peak here in the fall. So we know at some point we're going to be closed down yet again. So you know, the buyers are hesitant to pre-place too much.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That was the second thing I was going to say, that I think that people who offer quick delivery, you know, and when I'm speaking to agents, I say, get yourself a quick delivery collection, because that's the way that's going to be interesting. Things from stock, from 2 or 3 weeks delivery, that's going to be the key thing. And I think people will probably underbuy for next spring. And I think next spring, when it comes to the spring especially, there's going to be a huge demand for people who can supply the market with interesting and new ideas. What about price points? You said it's a sort of medium high-end income market. So does that mean that critical buying points, resale selling points are higher than possibly other countries?
Yeah, they always are, because we can't have 2.4, 2.5, 2.6 margins. It's irrelevant up here.
I know that Coca-Cola cost about 10 or 12 euros in Scandinavia, whereas you can get it for 5 in London. So how does that apply to clothing?
It does, and it comes back to what I said. We have a very high standard of living, so obviously our staff in the stores get very well compensated. To be, let's say, a shop manager, you get paid the same as a manager would in a tech company. To be a shop assistant, you get paid so that you can easily have a house and 2 kids and whatever. So it's slightly different. So one of the most important things is that to utilize companies as yourselves to help brands figure out what their price point in that region is. Because if they come to the market and they maintain their classic sort of 2.6, 2.7 margin, nobody will touch them. Not a single, it might be a distributor says, yes, I'll take it, but the reality is that they're not going to sell anything. And it also comes back to what is the expectation. If you want to be a brand that does 500,000 euro after 10 years of trying to get in, hey, all the power to you. But I can just say from our point of view, if we had a brand that said in 10 years time we want to do €500,000, we would say good luck, and we would guide them elsewhere, because that's just not interesting.
One of the questions that always comes up, and somebody's asked it already, and I'll just drop it in now, is, you know, how important is sustainability and recycling to Scandinavia? Is it a major factor in any way at all?
I think from a micro and macroeconomic point, yes, it is. There are continued talks about it, but
yeah,
we go back to what you started out saying. We have two of the largest fast fashion players in the world in our region, H&M and Bestseller.
yeah,
So obviously we might talk the talk, but let's say we don't always walk the walk. It is very much in newspapers every day. Scandinavia is considered to be the foremost region of the world within sustainability and circular economy, but it's just not what we're seeing. I mean, we have brands that focus on this in our portfolio, and we do well with them. But at the same time, we also sell other brands that don't focus on this to the exact same stores.
yeah. So what actually should the price point be from 3 to 4?
I would say 3 is enough. We had a couple of Danish brands that sort of started out not more than 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and they sort of came to the market. The first one started with a 3.0, did really well. Then the next one sort of said, we're going to do a 3.5, and they had a really good sort of network in the market. And they gained 250 accounts in one season. Problem was the product was not very good, so they lost 250 accounts after that first season. So it really is, if you want to get into Scandinavia, you need to also look inward. You need to look upon your own business and your product, and it's sort of like take a stress test. If you want to go to what would be considered one of the most exclusive markets in the world, does your product measure up?
Yeah.
And you need to be able to segmentate that into the market. So if, let's say, your product is, let's say, price sensitive, and you want to work with X amount of income, then that's your total mass of scope. And you're lucky if you're going to hit 10% of that. So you can sort of average it out what it's going to be.
Brexit, nobody cares anymore. All gone, all done.
Well, no, we thought it was fantastic. We've got, I mean, we have some of the British brands that we carry. They asked us to be their warehouse.
Okay, good idea. Yeah. I've always been a Brexit skeptic. I always thought in the end, it won't make any difference. I think we're going to look back in about 10 or 15 years' time and say, what was that all about? We'll never forget COVID, though. That's with us for a very, very long time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you be, so you've already said that digital sales are important. I mean, and digital exhibitions. Reports that I've had on digital exhibitions is that they haven't been very well attended. Pitti in Florence had 170 exhibiting to their digital show out of normally what would be 1,200. I think when, I know we've talked about digital, but I just wanted to get this off my chest. It was announced today that the Oxford research team in UK think they've got a vaccine now. And I think that once that is found to work, or another one in the world is found to work, I think that's when we're just going to say, we're going to put the digital on one side and use it as a bit of a toy, but I don't know if it's going to be important anymore, and social distancing will go, everything will change. I hope so, I pray so anyway.
I think you're right in some regards, and I think it comes down to the segmentation again. Let's say you have a brand which has a focus on 45 to 65 of age. The majority of shop owners and buyers for that sort of price brand or for that sort of brand identity would be an elderly person, which means they might not be tech savvy, might not trust the digital sort of world, and aren't happy to do that. They still want the physical element. It's going to take a long time before this goes over. I mean, for how many years? 15 years have we heard that the e-commerce is going to be the death of retail? And the reality is, this is Scandinavian numbers, not the world, because I know it's different in the US and somewhere else. But in 1980, 6% of all sales were, catalog business, where you got it sent from a catalog.
Yeah.
that's basically the modern e-commerce. Today, e-commerce in our region is only 9%.
Yeah. No, that's really, I've always been fascinated by these figures and done a lot of research into it. And for example, I recently discovered, because we did a webinar on China, I always read that China, 60% of buying was online. But actually, it's true, but it's not true, because the really cheap fashion, yes, it's got a very high, but the kind of thing that you sell, good contemporary fashion, is only just 20%. So the majority of fashion in China is of fashion, and luxury and medium price is actually bought in bricks and mortar shops. So, you know, hooray for agents, because you become the most important factor in selling. And I've been saying this in all of the webinars that I've been doing. Did you actually sell from stock? You don't carry stock yourself in your showroom?
On some brands we do,
right.
and some brands we don't. It depends upon the situation for the brand. I mean, as I said, we do work with some brands that are see now, buy now, so we don't need to. Then we'll work with brands that are traditional with 6-month lead time. Those we usually tend to buy additional stock from once we start knowing what stock turn it can generate. And it varies. I mean, we are also part owners of a couple of Danish brands that we then take care of worldwide. So, I mean, it depends. It's I would say that the days where the distributor would have large stock on the warehouse is dead.
Oh yeah. And what about we help fashion brands find agents all over the world, and we know that in America 99.9% of showrooms charge a retainer fee before you've even sold. We've noticed it in some other countries as well. It's beginning to creep in. Is it? Do you find that would you say maybe not yourself, but others in Scandinavia charge fees for?
I know it's coming in. I know that some of the leading showrooms for the past years, Holzweiler, Leader, they started doing it. And I do see the relevance of it, because for us to launch a brand, we invest a minimum of 150,000 euros. That's before we even gotten a single order. That's hiring the right staff, getting the right people on the floor, investing into the right fairs. And if we partner up with a brand that just keeps sending us these sort of standard emails, what's going on? Why haven't you sold anything? Yes, then the next time they'll be coming to Copenhagen, they would be getting an invoice with showroom fees or retainer. I think it's very different. We don't work as agents. So for us, retainer doesn't make sense. We only work as distributor.
Okay.
But I know others do.
Yeah, no, interesting. What would you, is there such a thing as a must-have factor, for a brand to be successful in Scandinavia? Is this,
No. I think the brands that typically are successful in our region are honest brands.
Yeah.
So if that's a must-have factor, to be honest, and that honesty is not about, saying it's white when it's white or black when it's black. It's about staying true to who you are, not trying to be something you're not trying to jump all over the market, but to go in after the segment that you're made for and then just deliver.
I have a question for somebody who wants to know about accessories and jewellery. We know there's quite a few well-known brands coming out of, again, Scandinavia. Is there a place for accessories and jewellery right now? It's been growing and growing, but maybe
yes. We some of our best salespeople have in their side bag always accessories and jewellery with them. Simply because the majority of not just bijouterie business, but also clothing stores have now a small selection of jewellery in their stores.
And concept stores, have they become a factor in the market? Have you seen concept stores growing?
They're dying now.
They're dying now?
Yeah,
really?
They're dying now. The reality is,
we always thought that was going to be the big thing in the future. to save the life of retail.
I think, I don't know, you know, I mean, the most famous concept store used to be in Paris, and it no longer is. It went bust, what, about 5 years ago? So
yeah,
it's hard to fathom, but usually what we see is that the ones that do these sort of concept stores, they get up 2-3 years, they do really well, and then people just get tired of it.
Yeah. Okay, I think we've covered most points, Henrik. We've had a few questions. I think I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me today, and wishing you success for the coming season. Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. We're looking forward to seeing you all next season for a new series of webinars. And yeah, good luck. Have a very nice week, and let's hope the sun keeps shining. Hold on, we've got somebody coming up with a quick question before we go. Hold on a second. Do you think people, whoops, sorry, it jumped around. Do you think people are willing to pay more for sustainable products?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
They do.
All right.
If it's proper sustainability, yes. But the reality is people really have to be careful when saying they are sustainable, because as said, we are in a part of the world where people have nothing but time to find the holes in the cheese. So if somebody goes out and promises sustainability, they really have to be sustainable.
Okay, a question about, suddenly the questions are coming in. Thank you, everybody. Having nearly said goodbye to you. What about is there a market for alpaca? I know in some places it's not allowed.
That sort of whole mishap has completely gone, and
yeah.
Alpaca is a beautiful product. As long as it's properly harvested, there's no problem with it at all.
Yeah.
There's actually a Danish furniture company that does extremely well just using alpaca for everything.
Yeah. And I know fur sells in Finland, because I think everybody has a fur coat there, don't they? But is that the same in Scandinavia, or have they, like the UK, we've rejected fur a lot?
We don't.
You don't?
Well, Denmark is the biggest country in the world producing mink fur, so no, we certainly like our fur. Okay,
good. Right, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you again, Henrik. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I look forward to meeting you in Copenhagen one day when it's easy to get on a plane. My holidays are going to be very much car-driven in the next 6 months. Assuming I get time for a holiday, I think I will. So I wish you all a very good season, all of you listening. Henrik, thank you very much. Bye-bye.